Good morning. It's Sunday morning where I am, and I hear birds chirping. And I'm back to Jean-Pierre, our Jesuit, and I'm on chapter 1. This is section 4 on the use of mental faculties. The exercise of mental and other faculties is only useful when instrumental of divine action. The mind, with all the consequences of its activity, might take the foremost rank among the tools employed by God, but has to be deputed to the lowest as a dangerous slave. It might be of great service if made use of in a right manner, but is a danger if not kept in subjection. When the soul longs for outward help, it is made to understand that the divine action is sufficient for it. When without reason it would disclaim this outward help, the divine action shows that if such help should be received and adapted with simplicity in obedience to the order established by God, and that we should use it as a tool, not for its own sake, but as though we used it not, and when deprived of all help as though we wanted nothing. The divine action, although of infinite power, can only take full possession of the soul insofar as it is void of all confidence in its own action. For this confidence, being founded on a false idea of its own capacity, excludes the divine action. This is the obstacle most likely to arrest it, being in the soul itself. For, as regards obstacles that are exterior, God can change them if he so pleases in making means for progress. All is alike to him, equally useful or equally useless. Without the divine action, all things are as nothing, and with it the veriest nothing can be turned into account. Whether it be meditation, contemplation, vocal prayer, interior silence, or the active use of any of the faculties, either sensible and distinct or almost imperceptible, quiet retreat or active employment, whatever it may be in itself, even if the very desirable, that which God wills for the present moment is best, and all else must be regarded by the soul as being nothing at all. Thus, beholding God in all things, it must take or leave them all as he pleases, and neither desire to live, nor to improve, nor to hope, except as he ordains, and never by the help of things which have neither power nor virtue except from him. It ought at every moment and on all occasions to say with St. Paul, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? Acts 9:6. Without choosing this thing or that, but whatsoever you will. The mind prefers one thing, the body another. But Lord, I desire nothing but to accomplish your holy will. Work, contemplation, or prayer, whether vocal or mental, active or passive, the prayer of faith or of understanding, that which is distinguished in kind, or gifted with universal grace. It is all nothing, Lord, unless made real and useful by your will. It is to your holy will that I devote myself, and not to any of these things, however high and sublime they may be, because it is the perfection of the heart for which grace is given, and not for that of the mind. The presence of God which sanctifies our soul is the dwelling of the Holy Trinity in the depth of our hearts when they submit to his holy will. The act of the presence of God made in contemplation affects this intimate union only like other acts that are according to the order of God. There is, therefore, nothing unlawful in the love and esteem we have for contemplation and other pious exercises, if this love and esteem are directed entirely to the God of all goodness, who willingly makes use of these means to unite our souls to himself. In entertaining the suite of a prince, one entertains the prince himself. and he would consider any discourtesy shown to his officers under pretense of wishing for him alone as an insult to himself. Whew. Section 7 on the attainment of peace. There is no solid peace except in submission to the divine action. The soul that does not attach itself solely to the will of God will find neither satisfaction nor sanctification in any other means, however excellent, by which it may attempt to gain them. If that which God Himself chooses for you does not content you, from whom do you expect to obtain what you desire? If you are disgusted with the meat prepared for you by the divine will itself, what food would not be insipid to so depraved a taste? No soul can be really nourished, fortified, purified, enriched, and sanctified except in fulfilling the duties of the present moment. What more would you have? As in this you can find all good, why seek it elsewhere? Do you know better than God? As He ordains it thus, why do you desire it differently? Can His wisdom and goodness be deceived? When you find something to be in accordance with this divine wisdom and goodness, ought you not to conclude that it must needs be excellent? Do you imagine you will find a peace in resisting the Almighty? Is it not, on the contrary, this resistance, which we too often continue without owning it even to ourselves, which is the cause of our troubles? It is only just, therefore, that the soul that is dissatisfied with the divine action for each present moment should be punished by being unable to find happiness in anything else. If books, the example of the saints, and spiritual conversations deprive the soul of peace, if they fill the mind without satisfying it, it is a sign that one has strayed from the path of pure abandonment to divine action, and that one is only seeking to please oneself. To be employed in this way is to prevent God from finding an entrance. All this must be got because of being an obstacle. All this must be got rid of because of being an obstacle to grace. But if the divine will ordains the use of these things, the soul may receive them like the rest. That is to say, as the means ordained by God, which it accepts simply to use and leaves afterwards, when their moment has passed, for the duties of the moment that follows. There is, in fact, nothing really good that does not emanate from the ordinance of God, and nothing, however good in itself, can be better adapted for the sanctification of the soul and the attainment of peace. Section 8. To estimate degrees of excellence. The perfection of souls and the degree of excellence to which they have attained can be gauged by their fidelity to the order established by God. The will of God gives to all things a supernatural and divine value for the soul submitting to it. The duties it imposes and those it contains, with all the matters over which it is diffused, become holy and perfect, because, being unlimited in power, everything it touches shares its divine character. But in order not to stray either to the right or to the left, the soul should only attend to those inspirations which it believes it has received from God, by the fact that these inspirations do not withdraw it from the duties of its state. Those duties are the most clear manifestation of the will of God, and nothing should take their place. In them there is nothing to fear, nothing to exclude, nor anything to be chosen. The time occupied in the fulfillment of these duties is very precious and very salutary for the soul, by the indubitable fact that it is spent in accomplishing this holy will. The entire virtue of all that is called holy is in its approximation to this order established by God. Therefore, nothing should be rejected, nothing sought after, but everything accepted that is ordained, and nothing attempted contrary to the will of God. Books and wise counsels, vocal prayer and interior affections, if they are in accordance with the will of God, are instructive, and all help to guide and unify. In contemning all sensible means to this end, quietism is greatly to blame, for there are souls that are intended by God to keep always to this way. Their state of life and their attraction show this clearly enough. It is vain to picture any kind of abandonment from which all personal activity is excluded. When God requires action, sanctity is to be found in activity. Besides the duties imposed on everyone by their state of life, God may require certain actions which are not included in these duties, although they may not be in any way opposed to them. And attraction and inspiration are then the signs of the divine approval. Souls conducted by God in this way will find a greater perfection in adding the things inspired to those that are commanded, taking the necessary precautions required in such cases that the duties of their state may not clash with those things arranged by Providence. God makes saints as he pleases, but they are made always according to his plan and in submission to his will. This submission is true and most perfect abandonment. Duties imposed by the state of life and by divine providence are common to all the saints and are what God arranges for all in general. They live hidden from the world which is so evil that they are obliged to avoid its dangers. But it is not on this account that they are saints, but only on account of their submission to the will of God. The more absolute this submission becomes, the higher becomes their sanctity. We must not imagine that those whose virtue is shown in wonderful and singular ways, and by unquestionable attractions and inspirations, advance less on that account in the way of abandonment. From the moment that these acts become duties by the will of God, then to be content only to fulfill the duties of a state of life or the ordinary inspirations of providence would be to resist God, whose holy will would no longer retain the mastery of the passing moments, and to cease practicing the virtue of abandonment. Our duties must be so arranged as to be commensurate with the designs of God, and to follow the path designated by our attraction. To carry out our inspirations will then become a duty to which we become most faithful. As there are souls whose whole duty is defined by exterior laws, and who should not go beyond them because restricted by the will of God, so also there are others who, besides exterior duties, are obliged to carry out faithfully that interior rule imprinted on their hearts. It would be a foolish and frivolous curiosity to try to discover which is the most holy. Each has to follow the appointed path. Perfection consists in submitting unreservedly to the designs of God and in fulfilling the duties of one's state in the most perfect manner possible. To compare the different states as they are in themselves can do nothing to improve us, since it is neither in the amount of work nor in the sort of duties given to us that perfection is to be found. If self-love is the motive power of our acts, or if it be not immediately crushed when discovered, our supposed abundance will be in truth absolute poverty, because it is not supplied by obedience to the will of God. However, to decide the question in some way, I think that holiness can be measured by the love one has for God and the desire to please him, and that the more his will is the guiding principle and his plans conform to and loved, the greater will be the holiness, no matter what may be the means made use of. It is this that we notice in Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. In their separate lives, there is more of love than of greatness, and more of the Spirit than of the matter. It is not written that they sought holiness in things themselves, but only in the motive with which they used them. It must therefore be concluded that one way is not more perfect than another, but that the most perfect is that which is most closely in conformity with the order established by God, whether by the accomplishment of exterior duties or by interior dispositions. So that takes us through section 8, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to Abandonment to Divine Providence today.